How can somebody like General al-Raisi, who is in charge as the Inspector General of prisons and the guards and the interrogators, how can somebody like that become head of Interpol? The very purpose of which, as those founding documents set out so clearly, is to investigate crimes. How can he take over that role when he has not even investigated, despite countless requests, the cases of my clients?
Well, one of those clients joins us now from Istanbul. Back in 2018, Matthew Hedges was detained for 8 months while on a 2-week research visit for his thesis on the post-Arab Spring regime security strategy of the UAE. Thank you for being with us here on France 24.
Good evening. Thank you very much for having me.
It's a bit of a surreal situation when you look at the slate of candidates for the job of head of Interpol. Your thoughts on this?
So fundamentally, you're absolutely correct. There doesn't seem to be any standout candidate, and all of those listed seem to be mired in allegations such as torture within my own case example against Ahmed Nasser al-Raisi, but also previous presidents have had other charges filed against them.
You go for 2 weeks, part of your research for your thesis, and you're detained for 8 months, and it was not luxury conditions, your detention.
No, absolutely correct. It absolutely fulfills the conditions of torture. I was psychologically abused. I was held in solitary confinement for the entirety of my time. I was threatened with physical punishment, and they threatened to take me and send me abroad to an overseas military base. This is something which was absolutely not something you would expect in any case, and the feeling of powerlessness and insecurity was paramount every day.
When did you first have access to a lawyer or to somebody from the British consul?
So I actually had my first interaction with my lawyer the day before my defense hearing, nearly 6.5 months in, and the first meeting with the British embassy, face to face with anybody else except for the interrogators, was nearly 2 months after I was first detained. And to put it into further perspective, there was never a case file number. When my wife tried to arrange a defense lawyer for me, we were denied access. The whole process was arbitrary, and it was very clearly manipulated and controlled by the UAE authorities, who are looking to abuse the situation.
2 years on, do you know why you were arrested?
I still don't know why I was arrested, and we don't actually know the full charges of what I was arrested for. We don't know what the sentences were. Nothing has been made clear to us. The UK Foreign Office has requested this information from the UAE. There's been no response. And one of the individuals that I am claiming against is Major General Ahmed Nasser al-Raisi, because as Inspector General of the Abu Dhabi Police and the UAE Ministry of Interior, he had direct oversight over everything that was happening to me.
Yeah, and you had a compatriot arrested, for purportedly for wearing a Qatar football jersey?
Yeah, he wasn't. I wouldn't say arrested is the right word. He was systematically abused and physically tortured for wearing a football T-shirt at a international football competition that was being held within the UAE. This wasn't done by random people in the street. This was done by a policeman against him. This was done by the state prosecutor who made him sign false statements. He was stabbed. They threatened to kill him. The these abuses they're not isolated events. These are part of a whole system of abuse, which we've seen and that we note are total. And so figures such as, again, I'll emphasize the point, Major General Ahmed al-Raisi, as the Minister of Interior, Inspector General, who has the remit to maintain the dignity and welfare of prisoners, he's very clearly unable to do his job, and also he is part of the system that abuses detainees.
Head of Interpol means exchanging information in the search of suspected criminals who cross national borders. It means those so-called red notices, that is to say, stopping people when they get to airports. What do you and your attorney think about what the future of Interpol will be now?
Well, we've already seen that despite not even being at the helm of the presidency, the UAE they are systemic abusers of this system. They would, not just the UAE, but other states have attempted to list notices for people who commit minor crimes or are politically motivated. The onus is then on the individual to get rid of it. However, they may not be informed of the listing. And so this creates a complete psyche and behavior of insecurity, where if a state such as the UAE or Saudi Arabia or China or Iran lists someone under a red notice, the country that they're in has to arrest them. And this is then, this is up to the individual and the legal authorities to quash this and show that this is politically motivated. Now, if they were, the UAE and Major General Ahmed al-Raisi, able to assume the presidency of Interpol, it would legitimize this type of behavior and allow it to happen on a whole different scale. This is something that would happen. This would impact everyone in the world.
I'll leave you with the remark that was posted to LinkedIn by al-Raisi himself. He insists the UAE prioritizes, quote, the protection of human rights at home and abroad. Again, this is part of your remit, right, in the thesis you're writing?
Yes. So it seems like a dark joke. This is my experience is not an outlier. It just takes elementary research and the words of several states, of several NGOs to highlight the broad system of human rights abuses that the UAE undertakes both at home and abroad. But we've also seen in the last few months, the Pegasus hacking that the UAE has been undertaking, against persons within its own country, but also against heads of state, against ministers, against judges, against lawyers, against educators, anyone that could potentially be an opponent to it. We've seen it undertaking this, at will, because it has the ability to do so. The fact that it can pretend to try and lead international justice under the banner of protecting human rights, it's a dark joke that should signal a warning to states everywhere else that they should not let this happen, and they should push back against this.
The vote to determine the next head of Interpol will probably take place on Thursday. Matthew Hedges, thank you for speaking with us from Istanbul.
Thank you very much.